avarice, anger, and dejection are all offshoots of gluttony. For the glutton needs money first of all, so as to satisfy his ever-present desire, even though it never can be satisfied. His anger is inevitably aroused against those who obstruct his acquisition of money, and in turn gives place to dejection when he proves too weak to get his way. He is like the snake which goes on its breast and belly. Genesis chapter 3, verse 14. For when he possesses the material means for pleasure, he goes on his belly. But when he lacks these, he goes on his breast, since this is where the incentive power has its seat. For those who love pleasure, when deprived of it, grow angry and embittered. Moses therefore made the priest wear a breastplate, intimating through this symbol that he should inwardly restrain every impulse to anger by means of the intelligence, for it is termed the breastplate of judgment. Exodus chapter 28, verse 15. Now the priest must control this passion by means of the intelligence, for he is imperfect. Moses, however, being perfect, totally removed from himself the impulse to anger. Figuratively speaking, he does not wear a breastplate, but removes, as it were, his own breast. Thus, Scripture says, Moses removed the breast, and brought it as an offering before the Lord. Leviticus chapter 8, verse 29. There are others who neither eliminate anger completely nor control it with the intelligence, but who overcome it by laborious efforts. They are said to remove the breast with their arm, the arm being a symbol of toil and work. Similarly, to go on the belly is a very apt symbol for the life of pleasure, since the belly is the cause of virtually all the pleasures. When the belly has been filled, our desires for other pleasures are intensified, but when it is not full, they subside. Here is another illustration of the difference between one who is perfect and one who is still making progress. Moses, completely rejecting the pleasures of food, washed the belly and the feet with water. Leviticus chapter 8, verse 21. Here, belly signifies pleasure, and feet a man's ascent and progress. He who is still progressing, on the other hand, washes what is inside the belly, but not the belly as a whole. Note that in this passage it says he washed, not they shall wash. The first represents something voluntary, while the second indicates an action performed in obedience to a command. He who is perfect does what is right, not because of any command, but by his own free choice, whereas he who is still progressing acts in obedience to his superior. With very great care he removes, as it were, the breast in its entirety, but he does not remove the belly, he only washes it. The wise man is able altogether to renounce and eradicate wrath, but he is unable to eliminate the belly, since nature compels even the most ascetic to eat a bare minimum of food. When, however, the soul does not submit to the true and stable guidance of the intelligence, but has been corrupted by impure pleasures, the belly becomes distended, for even when the body is sated, desire is unsatisfied. And if the belly is swollen, the thigh will rot. Numbers chapter 5, verse 22. For when the belly is inflamed by luxurious foods, the mind loses all power to conceive what is good and is paralyzed in its spiritual efforts. It is to these spiritual efforts that the law is referring when it talks about the thigh. The lover of pleasure, then, goes on his belly, wallowing in sensual indulgence. But one who is beginning to pursue the spiritual way gets rid of the fat round his belly by giving up rich food. One who has progressed further cleanses what is inside his belly, while he who is perfect washes the whole of the belly, entirely rejecting what is superfluous to his basic needs. Very appropriately, Scripture applies the word goes, Genesis chapter 3 verse 14, to the man who has sunk down upon his chest and belly, for sensual pleasure is characteristic of those who are restless and full of agitation, not of those who are still and calm. Sexual desire is even more closely related to gluttony than are the passions of anger and dejection mentioned above. Nature herself has indicated the intimate connection between the two by placing the organs of sexual intercourse immediately below the belly. If lust is weak, it is because the belly has been made to go in want, while if lust is easily excited, it is from the belly that it derives its strength. As well as nursing and feeding these passions, gluttony also destroys everything good. Once it gains the upper hand, it drives out self-control, moderation, courage, fortitude, and all the other virtues. This is what Jeremiah cryptically indicates when he says, "And the chief cook of the Babylonians pulled down the wall of Jerusalem round about." 2 Kings chapter 25 verses 9 through 10, and Jeremiah chapter 52 verse 14. Here the chief cook signifies the passion of gluttony, for a chef makes every effort to minister to the belly, devising innumerable ways of giving it pleasure, and gluttony does just the same. A great variety of different foods overthrows the fortress of the virtues and razes it to the ground. Sauces and condiments are the siege engines that batter against virtue and overthrow it, even when it is already firmly established. And while overindulgence destroys the virtues, frugality destroys the stronghold of vice. Just as the chief cook of the Babylonians pulled down the walls of Jerusalem, and Jerusalem means a soul that is at peace, by encouraging fleshly pleasures through the art of cooking, so in the dream the Israelites' cake of barley bread rolling down the hill knocked down the Midianite tent. Judges chapter 7 verse 13, for a frugal diet steadily maintained, gathering impetus, as it were, from year to year, destroys the impulse to unchastity. The Midianites symbolized the passions of unchastity, because it was they who introduced this vice into Israel and deceived a great number of the young people. Numbers chapter 31 verse 9. Scripture aptly says that the Midianites had tents while Jerusalem had a wall. For the things that contain virtue are well-founded and firm, whereas those that contain vice are in external appearance a tent, and are no different from fantasy.